Hey, this is Larry the Cable Guy, and you are listening to Hope for the Caregivers with Peter Rosenberg. And if you're not listening to it, you're a communist. Get her done.
Welcome to Hope for the Caregiver. I am Peter Rosenberg, and this is the nation's #1 show for you as a family caregiver. How you doing? How are you holding up? What's going on with you? If you want to be a part of the show, 877-655-6755. We'd love to have you with us, and it's a treat to be along the journey here with you as a family caregiver. The more than 65 million Americans serve as a family caregiver right now. It's a very difficult job. It's a very challenging set of circumstances, and our mission and passion and everything else here at this show is to equip you to stay strong and healthy as you take care of someone who is not. And it's just not any more complicated than that. And part of that is we talk about different things of the journey and love doing it. And we don't try to get into the nuances of caregiving because, I can't tell you how to take care of your loved one anymore. You can tell me how to take care of mine. But what we can do is we can strengthen each other along the journey and be a part of that. So I'm just glad to have you with it. And always, I have himself, John Butler, the Count of Mighty Disco, with us. John, are you with us? Indeed.
I am with us. Yes. So how are you doing today, Peter?
For the shape I'm in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
And I had the show ready to go on Facebook because we stream the show when we do the podcast like you and I do here.
Right.
I had it all ready to go. It was all tested out. Everything was fine. And then I pressed the go button and everything just fell apart.
Oh,
I have no idea why this happens, John.
I feel like there's
there's
a caregiving metaphor in there,
Well, there is. So if you hear me typing in the background, that's why I'm just I'm reloading it and doing it again because I can just that's the kind of guy I am and that's the way I roll. But It is a little bit annoying that Facebook cannot seem to be consistent on that. So anyway, we're doing it right now.
Well, I think there's a lot to be annoyed about with Facebook, but we won't get into that because this is not that kind of show.
Yeah, that's not where we are, but it's I am annoyed with it. Hey, a lot to talk about today, and it's the beginning of the new year, and one of the things I wanted to do today was just to help set the table for this year on what as caregivers, how can we navigate through this? I mean, 2020 turned 21 and now is able to start drinking. So who knows what 2021 is going to be like. But I think one of the pitfalls that we fall into as caregivers is that we tend to overreach and punch above our weight class. I don't know. That's just something I've struggled with.
No, that's
a lot.
I like that metaphor. That's good. Because we often will, we see these things that seem insurmountable and then overcome them, and that kind of primes us for I can kind of do everything all the time, and to the point of burnout and terribleness.
Well, and setting unreasonable goals.
Yeah.
And, I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions, simply because I think that it sets us up. We don't know what the year's going to hold. And I think that we set unreasonable goals for ourselves. Oh, I'm going to lose 30 pounds or I'm going to do this.
Right.
And I think let's just set today's resolution.
There you
go. And so what can we do today? And I think this is a good reminder of where we are today and what we can do for ourselves today. And then later on in the show, I'm going to talk about some things that I have found and discovered, and I'm going to check out for you as a caregiver to offer a couple things. One of them is a creative outlet because that's something I really spend a lot of time on in helping caregivers find a creative outlet for themselves. I think that is so incredibly important. And then the second thing is I'm going to talk about something I saw the other night that was funny that I watched with Gray.
Oh, there you go.
And our son Grayson, he and I are big movie buffs, and we're kind of behind the scenes movie buffs. And I'll give you a teaser on one of them before we get into some other stuff. There's a documentary we watched called Score.
Okay.
SCORE. And I would highly recommend it. It goes through the history of film music. and you
how
know
many
how much I
times does
love
the
that
name
kind of stuff.
Newman come up? That's what I wanted.
It does indeed. And by the way, I did
Yes.
not know this. From what I understand, his father was a big composer in music.
No,
in
no,
the
no. That
family.
whole family, him and
Yeah, I mean-
like his dad and his brothers, the whole. That's why I said Newman and not a first name.
Well, I was thinking, of
'Cause,
course,
yeah.
Newman the mailman from Seinfeld, but no, it was
of
his
course, yeah.
father. And, no, I'm just kidding. And but they spent an awful lot of time on John Williams,
Oh, okay, okay.
and deservedly so, because
Right. I mean-
he wrote some of the most outstanding. And they said something I thought was really interesting. If film scores go away with then orchestras as we know in this country may go away.
They are a
because-
big, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and-
hear you.
But it was just fascinating to me to watch these guys, come up with nothing, and the way the movie changed because of that. And so Grace and I are big fans. I don't say this very often, but I'm going to say it now in the context. Okay, you're saying, Peter, why are you talking about this? Well, I won an award for best original theme in a short film in an Italian film festival. And,
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
So I am an award-winning composer.
Look at you
and-
put that on
and-
your wall.
Well, I guess I could put it up here somewhere, but
No,
I
you got a
did.
diploma. Yeah.
I don't even have that up, but I did win that, and that's been a big outlet for me as a caregiver
Yeah.
to do my music and to really kind of work through a lot of the things in my life, whatever challenges, and I love to watch documentaries on that sort of thing and watch the creative mind at work.
And I had not heard of that, but I'm very interested. Oftentimes, oh yeah, that's a good documentary. I'll watch a documentary about penguins or something like that, and it's just kind of like background, whatever. But that one is one that I feel like would really I would sit down and not leave until it was over. And really, like, because that whole,
you would really
Yeah.
really like this, and the process that they go through is astonishing. And I also watched a doc. I've been watching a lot of documentaries because I think it's better than watching the news. And
yeah. Let's,
and I feel a little
stay away
smarter
from that.
after watching documentaries.
but the implication being,
I'm just going to walk away. Nobody gets hurt. But I remember we spotlighted a poem that a lady who sent me that listens to the show, and we read this
Yeah.
on the air. Which if any listener has any poem that they've written as a caregiver, please send it to me. You can go back to hopeforthecaregiver.com under the contact thing and just send it to me. We'll read it on the air. As long as it's not like a inappropriate limerick.
we'll vet them. Oh well, I mean,
But-
we might do that too, but
But I think that's a wonderful, healthy outlet. But I was watching a documentary last night on Fanny Crosby. Now you may not know who she is.
that is not a name that is ringing a bell.
Her name. She was born Frances Crosby, but she went by Fanny, and she was blind. She was blind dead as an infant. Sadly, back in she was born in 1820, and
Okay.
she. The family called the doctor. She had an eye infection. The doctor was away, and there was another doctor who was kind of evidently turned out to be a real shyster, and he wasn't properly certified at all. And he came over there and he put a mustard poultice on her eyes, and then it ended up on the infant's eye as an infant, and it blinded her, and it was irreversible. Okay, and that's tragic. I mean, it's just sadly you had basically one step up from witch doctor medicine, but.
Right.
She went on to do extraordinary things. She was the first woman in 1843, when she's 23 years old, to address Congress.
Really? Okay.
And that was, which was astonishing. And she did it on behalf of people with disabilities. And she was at the New York School of the Blind, and she was a tremendous poet, prolific poet. And then she became a Christian when she was 30, and then started writing hymns when she was around that age, but really started most of her hymns she wrote in her 40s, from her 40s on. And she ended up writing more than 10,000 hymns.
Holy mess.
And she has,
I get it,
she
holy
is one of the
mess.
most Well, she had to write them under pseudonyms because the publisher had so many coming from her that they thought, gosh, we're just going to be doing a book of her. So we did it under different names. And some of the most beloved hymns in the country that was in the world that are sung, she wrote, and she was blind, but it was her love of poetry, and she's blind since birth. But her love of poetry that really, her mind was so nimble and so quick. And I came to have, again, even more respect for those who are creative with verse, and so I want to encourage all caregivers listening right now. It doesn't have to be what you think may be master quality. If you feel it, write it down. If it's important to you, write it down.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be something that we traditionally think of as creative or art or whatever. It can be a little bit outside that if you want. I mean, there's people write poetry and music and they draw and things like that. But it can be a creative. I mean, people do flower arrangements. People do all kinds of stuff, interior design and whatever it happens to be.
Whatever gets oxygen to your soul. I go back to
nice way of putting it. Yeah,
Dylan Thomas. When he was watching his father die, as he was.
I read this poem the other night on another thing I'm doing.
Do not go gentle into that good night. And it's just and he wasn't trying to write a hit poem. He was watching something that caused him angst, and he wrote it down. And I think as caregivers, if you have that kind of outlet, I'm not a very good lyricist. I write to care, to share, to be there. I have great hair,
Right. Yeah.
And so
you need a Bernie Taupin,
Yeah, I'm not that guy. But I'm going to talk about why I brought that up later on in the show, because I have something I found that I'm going to be testing on myself, and then I'm going to do that with other caregivers. But today, instead of setting a New Year resolution, can we maybe just dial it back a little bit and say, what's something you could do this afternoon for you as a caregiver, or whenever you're listening to this podcast? And I hope you subscribe to the podcast, by the way, because we are on every kind of platform out there, and we have a great time with it. And I think from all the data that we've seen, it is the #1 podcast in the world for family caregivers. So there is that. And share it.
A little bit. Yeah, and share it with your friends. And, if even if they're not a caregiver, one of the big things we do here is just we speak the language of being a caregiver. And oftentimes people who are not in that could use a little example if they've got a loved one who is in the caregiver role for somebody else. They're kind of maybe 1 or 2 steps removed from it and want to know, or just be a little more deft in the way that they behave in that situation.
Well, and the podcast has
also
been,
we're funny, so
we are funny.
Yeah.
We're serious about our funny.
Exactly.
The podcast for me has been a real treasure. I do the broadcast every Saturday morning live, and it's very caller driven. But the podcast is something a little bit different, and it's allowed us to open up and unpack it. And John and I kick around these ideas, and those of you who are regular listeners know this, so you have to indulge me. But the secret is that these are conversations John and I used to have out on the mezzanine, the veranda at iHeart Studios in Nashville on Music Row for many, many years. And we would kick around things that we found interesting, and we felt like it would be interesting to fellow caregivers. And we're not here to solve problems that you may have or that I may have. What we're here to do is just kind of build each other up and strengthen each other along the journey, because healthy caregivers make better caregivers. So keep that in mind. I've enjoyed the podcast, and I hope you are as well, and share it with others. It's a free podcast. We put it out there and have a good time with it. But we'll be right back. I got some great things we're talking about. We're talking about some things you can do starting today. Let's don't go all the way to the whole new year. Let's just deal with this afternoon or today. This is Hope for the Caregiver. This is Peter Rosenberg, and we'll be right back.
Have you ever struggled to trust God when lousy things happen to you? I'm Gracie Rosenberger, and in 1983, I experienced a horrific car accident leading to 80 surgeries and both legs amputated. I questioned why God allowed something so brutal to happen to me, but over time, my questions changed, and I discovered courage to trust God. That understanding, along with an appreciation for quality prosthetic limbs, led me to establish Standing with Hope. For more than a dozen years, we've been working with the government of Ghana and West Africa, equipping and training local workers to build and maintain quality prosthetic limbs for their own people. On a regular basis, we purchase and ship equipment and supplies, and with the help of inmates in a Tennessee prison, we also recycle parts from donated limbs. All of this is to point others to Christ, the source of my hope and strength. Please visit standingwithhope.com to learn more and participate in lifting others up. That's standingwithhope.com. I'm Gracie, and I am Standing with Hope.
I'm alive, lift up my voice above the chaos and the noise. It's all my hope amidst the pain. I shout this song against the rain. Rejoice evermore.
Welcome back to Hope for the Caregiver. I am Peter Rosenberger. This is the nation's #1 show for you as a family caregiver. That's Gracie from her CD, Resilient. You want a copy of that? Go out to hopeforthecaregiver.com. You can get a copy of it today. We'll send it out to you. It's a fabulous CD. I'm supposed to be putting that out on all the digital streaming services, but my staff, staff,
I thought I heard my name for a second.
my staff is struggling. That would be me and John. But we are going to do the best we can this year to get it out. We got a lot of things we're going to do. We're going to start doing some more video stuff on our page as well. I'm going to be doing some video vignettes of things and just a lot more content, just constantly putting content out there for you as a caregiver so that you have a friendly voice. I have a friendly voice, John.
You do.
A friendly voice just to kind of talk you through some of the stuff and so you don't feel so alone. You know, we know what isolation feels like, and it can lead to some very dark thoughts, and this is our way of pushing back on it. So I hope you will take advantage of all the things out there at hopeforthecaregiver.com, and our Facebook page is Hope for the Caregiver. There's a group page too for Hope for the Caregiver. You can join the group, and that's a little bit more private if you need to just vent or whatever. We don't share that out. And we try to keep things as confidential as possible in there to let you know that this is just a safe place for you to kind of deal with whatever. And if you need to write me, it's right there at the website. You can do that, and we'd be glad to have you do it. John, I was, I'm going to save this for the next segment because this is something I want to continue talking about. But I want to get back to the music thing.
Yeah.
And I reached out to a friend of mine. And he has got to start. I'm going to test this on myself. Okay. So I'm not going to give it out today. I'm just going to give a teaser for it, but I'm going to test it on myself to see, because this is an outlet that I would like to do for me. Okay. As a caregiver, it's not going to be for everybody, but if any of you have ever wanted to be a songwriter or to be better at it, if you like writing songs, you like writing music, whatever, but you wanted to be better at it, this guy is a very, very successful, established songwriter. That's what he does for a living in Nashville. I used to do martial arts with him. And he launched this thing that's very affordable. It's a subscription per month, but it gives tons and tons of videos and access to him basically downloading his craft into this streaming service that he's provided, and to help you become a better songwriter, so that you can learn the ins and outs of writing good quality songs that would be commercially viable. And if that's something you want to do, which is something I've done that. I mean, I've got songs that were cut and I've done things and so forth, but I certainly would like to do it better. And, and he's the pro. And so I'm going to try that out for me to see if it works on me and if I like it. And I believe I will, and then I'll pass it on to you guys. But I thought that'd be something that may be of interest to some who, because I know we have people in this audience who do like to pick up a guitar or a piano or whatever. In John's case, a bagpipe.
Pick up a piano.
By the way, I did see I saw somebody posted this on Facebook the other day, and it was somebody doing jazz on a bagpipe. And
Nice.
it was, at first I thought, no. And they were bending the notes and everything. It was really good. Yes,
Okay.
it was good, John.
I'm down.
Now, have you seen the guy that's dressed in a kilt doing Thunderstruck on it?
Oh
Surely
no,
you've seen that.
I've seen that. Yeah.
And the
I saw
flames
that,
come
and,
out of the top.
Right. That's the guy in Portland. He also rides a unicycle and occasionally wears a Darth Vader mask.
You know, God love him for that. And,
Well,
but
it's Portland. What do you expect? You know.
Exactly. But I was, when I saw him do Thunderstruck, I thought that's the way Thunderstruck should have been done. That's an AC/DC
Absolutely.
tune for those of you
Yeah,
who don't
yeah.
know and don't maybe care. But you know, John and I felt like it was important. But no, the creative mind for caregivers, and I can't stress enough as we begin this new year. I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to give yourself permission to unleash that creative mind that you have as a caregiver. I know it's there. You can't do what
Yeah.
you do as a caregiver without having it.
Well, and let me a quick aside, like we always do. But
Everything we do is
if-
aside.
Right. But if you don't feel like you have a huge amount of like, oh, there's a story in my brain that needs to come out, or you don't usually say create in quotation marks out of whole cloth some new thing, some new poem, some new song, or whatever. One of the things that I did throughout this year was that satisfied that urge was I built several wooden clocks, which is a little odd.
It's you.
Yeah. But these were not things that I designed myself. They were from a kit. So if you know, and that worked out really, really well because I did get to satisfy a lot of maybe that creative bug that like, oh, I'm going to develop the process for how this all goes together, or really just think about how I need to make this work without snapping the one piece that's really, really important that I'd have to buy the whole thing.
Which is
again,
what
you
I
know,
would
or-
do. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
lousy at models. Good at jigsaw puzzles, lousy at models.
Yeah, and I was the other way. I did really well with models. You know, if you like models, or you like well, I was going to ask you know how many model trains are in your basement or something like that.
Which I always admire people that had huge train setups. But, you know,
Right.
the creative, like
Which
you
is
said,
a
the
very creative thing, you know.
It is. And the creative thing is not limited to music or even the arts. You could be somebody who would really enjoys cooking and cooking something more elaborate. John, you're like that.
Yeah.
And there's
Oh, I
so many
do. Oh,
things
yeah.
online that you
I
can
made a
watch that are
strawberry
tutorials.
pie the other day that would have knocked your socks off. It was great.
What, strawberry pie?
A strawberry pie, absolutely fresh strawberry pie. Ooh.
Well, you know, there are so many online tutorials that you could take. And I would highly recommend taking advantage of those things. It could be, you know, a master class in such and such that it's affordable, it's easy, but it gives you a gardening or, you know, woodworking.
Yeah.
I admire the heck out of people who do woodworking.
Oh man, it is amazing. Yeah, the things they can do. Well, and like a lot of these, they're not even. There's no cost. I don't know if you've ever watched Binging with Babish, is a YouTube channel, but it's a cooking show, and he cooks things from like shows and movies, and you know, like it's like, hey, we're going to try to construct this obnoxious sandwich from, you know, I don't know, SpongeBob SquarePants or whatever happens to be. But he has the voice. Like, it's really, really nice. But yeah, there's a ton of things out there that may be low or no cost, and you can learn really almost anything.
Please do. Like I said, I've been taking
Yeah.
advantage of all these documentaries out there because, gosh, there's so much bad news and there's so much bad drama and all this stuff on this thing, and you feel kind of yicky after watching certain things. But if you watch some of these other things, man, you feel like you're smarter and you're wiser. So, you know, anyway, we got to go to a break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about some more things here, and I think you're going to enjoy it. This is Peter Rosenberg with John Butler, Hope for the Caregiver, hopeforthecaregiver.com. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Peter Rosenberger. Have you ever helped somebody walk for the first time? I've had that privilege many times through our organization, Standing with Hope. When my wife, Gracie, gave up both of her legs following this horrible wreck that she had as a teenager, and she tried to save them for years, and it just wouldn't work out, and finally she relinquished them and thought, wow, this is it. I mean, I don't have any legs anymore. What can God do with that? And then she had this vision for using prosthetic limbs as a means of sharing the gospel, to put legs on her fellow amputees, and that's what we've been doing now since 2005 with Standing with Hope. We work in the West African country of Ghana, and you can be a part of that through supplies, through supporting team members, through supporting the work that we're doing over there. You could designate a limb. There's all kinds of ways that you could be a part of giving the gift that keeps on walking at standingwithhope.com. Would you take a moment to go out to standingwithhope.com and see how you can give? They go walking and leaping and praising God. You can be a part of that at standingwithhope.com.
As a caregiver, think about all the legal documents you need. Power of attorney, a will, living wills, and so many more. Then think about such things as disputes about medical bills. What if, instead of shelling out hefty fees for a few days of legal help, you paid a monthly membership and got a law firm for life? Well, we're taking legal representation and making some revisions in the form of accessible, affordable, full-service coverage. Finally, you can live life knowing you have a lawyer in your back pocket who, at the same time, isn't emptying it. It's called Legal Shield, and it's practical, affordable, and a must for the family caregiver. Visit caregiverlegal.com. That's caregiverlegal.com. Isn't it about time someone started advocating for you? www.caregiverlegal.com, an independent associate.
Welcome back to Hope for the Caregiver. I am Peter Rosenberger along with John Butler. This is the nation's #1 show for you as a family caregiver. Hey, a little programming note. John, I got an email back. We're going to try to work it out hopefully this month or maybe next. Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. Well, I reached out to him. Here's why I reached out to him.
Okay.
Because he was heavily into drugs. I mean, like, darn near took his life. I mean, it was bad news. And I thought, you know what? We talk about that with addiction and alcoholism and so forth. And I thought, let it share his story and some things he would share to folks who are in a relationship with someone who's got those problems, and some insights that he may have. And I thought, you know, I met him once, and he's a pretty good guy. You ever notice he talks like Jesse the Body Ventura?
He does. I was going to say, I think they're from the same area,
Minnesota.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
So, and by the way, if you ever want any of those products, you can use the word caregiver, and you get a discount. Use the word caregiver on any of these products, promo code caregiver. But we're going to try to have him on the show, so that'd be kind of fun. And so that's coming up, and we're going to have other guests along the way, and I think you'll be pleased. We got a good slate of folks that we like to have on. Some of them are going to be well known, some of them are not. But it's always a fun time to unpack some great conversations with folks. I've been always pleasantly surprised by just the way the conversations go with these folks, and it's a great forum just to kind of kick it around. And so stay tuned for more and more wonderful guests. But in the meantime, you have John and me. Well, mostly John. And all right, John, I got a quote for you.
Oh, right on. Okay.
I said this to my son the other day because we were talking about some issues in his business that he's got, and so some human resources issues. Did I say that delicately enough?
I think you did.
And
I think that was a lovely Orwellian way of putting it. I like it. Right.
He was torqued a little bit because he was afraid that some of this stuff was going to end up making his life more filled with drama, or his company is going to do this and this. And I said, look, risk aversion is not a sustainable way to live. You know, it's just not. I mean, it's important if you're an engineer and you're middle management somewhere, but if you're going to be any kind of entrepreneur or self-starter, there's risk involved. and you might as well just accept it. And then I said this quote. It just came out off the top of my head, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit with you. And I said, "Life is messy. Keep a mop close by."
I like that.
And he looked at me and he said, Dad, I got to write that one down. And I said, well, you're welcome to it, but I want 5 cents every time you use it. No.
Absolutely.
But no, I thought about that. Okay, as caregivers, life for us is very messy and will be. And keep a mop close by.
Sometimes you need a literal mop close by.
Yes. In fact, I probably need one this afternoon. But it's okay. And I've learned to, and what happened was I used to get so uptight about that sort of thing because like Gracie, for example, if you got somebody in a wheelchair, you're going to have spills. Okay. Let's just deal with the literal messy part. You're going to have spills. It's going to happen. You cannot avoid it. If you got somebody who has any kind of mobility impairment, it's going to have spills. Now, Gracie, her hand on her right, a lot of people don't know this, but on her right hand, she had a pinched nerve in her elbow, and the nerves on her hand really are messed up, and she can't grip very well. And so she's lost a lot of feeling in her fingers, and that's been very, very troubling to her because Gracie also was a pianist, and I hate that for her. But holding a cup sometimes can be, a little bit of a challenge. You're going to have a spill. And I used to get very uptight about things because there was always a mess to clean up or this or whatever, something would spill. And so you know what I did, John?
What'd you do?
I got rid of carpet.
Yes.
And
look, those non-standard solutions for things like some people struggle with depression or anxiety or various mental health issues that can produce some weird and unfortunate things, like it might be a week or two before they get around to doing the dishes or something like that, And this happens. This is not, it's just a deal. And I was reading a thing. Somebody's like, I can't keep up with the dishes. That is the one thing that is really torquing me about this. And the therapist was like, well, what's stopping you from using plastic plates or paper plates or anything like that? And, it's like, well, do you feel shame about that? Well, yeah, you might, because of the way that mom would not like this at all. But when it's just you or your family or something like that, then that's a total, like, why wouldn't you think of this sort of thing?
I think,
well,
Bobby
I know
Boucher,
why you wouldn't, but yeah.
Bobby Boucher and the Waterboy said it best.
This is like the third time this week I've talked about the Waterboy. Go ahead.
Bobby Boucher and the Waterboy says, "What Mama don't know won't hurt her."
Ooh,
actually, I think it was Henry Winkler that said it to his Mr. Cook's client, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Cook's client, sir. And so,
you don't
I
know
think
this, but I have an autographed picture hanging in my house of Firuza Balk, who was his what's her name? Vicky Valancourt.
Vicky Valancourt? You have an autographed picture of Vicky?
I have an autographed picture of Vicky Valancourt, yes.
Mama says she's the devil. Mama says she's the devil.
No, it's hanging because, go ahead.
Non-conventional solutions, though, yeah. I mean, well, actually, in some respects, it's kind of a conventional solution. But
it's a very
instead of stressing
solution.
About the carpet getting messy with something on a spill, you get rid of the carpet. And I don't ever anticipate, if I can ever help it in my life, having carpet again. I mean, we're right now in this little cabin we're in right now. I have just a little bit in my office,
right,
because of the sound for the radio. But
no, that's good. Yeah, good call.
We tore up a lot of the carpet in here, and then when we end up building a house, from wherever we go, we're going to tear it up. And people said, "Well, don't your feet get cold?" I said, "I'll wear shoes. I can't go barefoot in a house." You know why?
Oh, okay. Why is that?
You know why?
No,
Die Hard.
Go on.
Die Hard. It ruined me for barefoot.
Well, you need. That's why you need one little patch of carpet so you can make fists with your toes.
Well, no. I just never go barefoot. I hate going barefoot. Die Hard ruined me for that. And Gracie, it's not like, she doesn't need a carpet, with wheelchairs and prosthetic legs. And
it probably makes it worse,
Yeah, it does. It's actually harder on her. And so I thought, okay, just go with it. But life is messy. Keep a mop close by. And as a caregiver, I would suggest to you, and particularly if you're new at this, be prepared for messes, okay? And avoid, if possible, trying to over-prepare for messes.
Yeah,
Sometimes they're just going to happen.
Yeah, and when you say be prepared for messes, messes are not always spilled, chocolate milk on the carpet, which is the worst, by the way.
Well, no.
That's
no.
the one.
I don't know. There's more
you
worse.
got one.
Believe me.
All right, what you got? Yeah.
No. We're not going to talk about this on there, but believe me, there's worse.
This is coming from a parenting standpoint. Like that's the thing that always would just, I'm a pretty calm dude and a pretty calm dad, but the thing that really would just hit that anger button in my head was whenever chocolate milk got spilled on the carpet. I now have hardwood floors, just like you. But
I'm good with it.
Being prepared for that with a mop, but also being prepared for the emotional messes that will happen.
Well said. Brilliantly said. He whose height exceedeth most normal people.
Well, sometimes my reach exceeds my grasp.
No. You're as tall as you are. Look here, Puddle Glum. As tall as you are, nobody's going to get that, but you and me. But that's okay. No, it's. I think because you're going to have emotional messes. You're going to have drama in your relationships. You're going to have all these things. It's going to happen. It's okay. Life's messy. Keep a mop close by. And understand that perfection is not the goal, okay? It just cannot be. And sometimes perfection is the enemy of the good. And so that's something I was sharing with Grayson as we did that. And he seemed to think that had value to him. And he said, okay, I got it. So he's not spending all of his time trying to make sure nothing bad happens and instead make something good happen. And I think that's what the advice I would give to myself in the COVID world. I think so many people stop living in order to keep from dying. And, that there has to be some balance to your life. You cannot just go into self-preservation mode 24/7. You're going to have to extend out and take a risk. And C.S. Lewis,
that doesn't mean go to the dance club right now, okay, guys? All right, that's too risky.
No, don't be stupid. But there's a great quote from Lewis that says, "If you love deeply, you're going to get hurt badly, but it's still worth it."
Oh,
isn't that a great quote?
Well, he was a very creative individual.
Well, I watched a documentary on him, and one guy said he had a lot of things to say and he said them well.
So,
but if you love deeply, you're going to get hurt badly, but it's still worth it. And I would say to you as a caregiver, you love deeply. That's kind of the whole point. You're a caregiver. That means you're loving deeply someone else at your expense. It's going to hurt. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but it's still worth it for multiple reasons. And your loved one may not be able to reciprocate back in the way you would like.
Or even appreciate.
Or they may not. They just may not. And oftentimes that happens. Maybe they have an impairment that they can't do it. Maybe they're just being a jerk. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you're not growing and becoming a more spectacular individual because you're expanding your heart and loving deeply.
And that is kind of what I was thinking about right as we were going to the break last time. We were talking about, doing creative things or learning something new or going on YouTube or whatever and finding something, I don't want to equate these two things, but having a growth mindset of, I plan on learning for the rest of my life and the intellectual humility that comes along with that. Is something that I find very important, and that there's always some new little thing to discover about whatever it is, even your great passions, especially your great passions.
Well, I think it's Grayson and I were Gray and I when he's been out here in Montana with us, he went back to Nashville, but when Grayson is a deep thinker, and I enjoy those conversations with him. I enjoy my conversation with Parker. Parker has 3 children and 4 dogs. So it's
That's
it gets
I believe that's what we call a passel.
that's a lot. So it's but we had a great time, and I got to see my little granddaughter over the holidays, and we came back, and Gray's been with us a little bit. So I just sent him back. But he and I would have these conversations, and it's really about personal enrichment. Am I going to enrich myself? Not waiting for things to be in order or perfect in my life, but just go ahead every day, look for something that's going to enrich me. And I would suggest to you that as a pianist, as a composer, as an artist, I am far more pleased with what I do musically than I would be had I not experienced some of the pathos that I've done as a caregiver. I mean, I cannot see me playing the way I play if I'd not felt and experienced what I've experienced. As an artist, I don't see how any artist does that. And as a caregiver, I would suggest to you that what you're experiencing is, however painful, however difficult, however scary, is just as equally capable of expanding your heart in ways that you may not expect, for you to love more deeply, for you to experience beauty more deeply, and for you to be loved more deeply and embrace love more deeply. In all its capacities, whether it's stopping to look at a flower that you may not have seen. I got up the other morning, and we have, admittedly, one of the best views that one could have.
Yeah, all right,
And,
all right.
Keep
on bragging, buddy.
I have a
hear ya.
30-mile view from our bedroom window. 30 miles, easily.
For those of
on a
you
clear
playing
day.
along at home, if you're standing at sea level on the plains, you have about a 6 or maybe even less mile view.
And I'm at 6,000 feet, and we look
Yeah.
down over a valley, and then the peaks rise up on the other side of the valley, and I can see the peaks going way down south towards Yellowstone. And on a clear day, and I watch the sunset come over the peaks. I mean, sunrise come over the peaks. And it took my breath away. I mean, truly. And I've seen this view every day, but it just like, and I
Made
can
you want to write a
appreciate
song.
Well, it did, but I could appreciate a sunset, when I was young. I mean, sunrise when I was young, but not nearly on the scale that I can do now. And so it's just a thought that I've wanted to share with folks that, life's messy. Don't try to, spend so much time avoiding the mess. But when it comes, just be prepared to clean it up and move on and keep going. You were going to say? I jumped on.
Oh, no. You needed to finish that. But no, I hear you in that it's not that, this is not to say that, because people say, oh, you can't have light without shadow, right? Okay, I get you. You can't have good without evil. All right, because it's defined by their opposite. That is not to say that the shadow or the darkness is good. It is to say that it is that it can provide much needed contrast. Put it that way.
Contrast is good. Contrast is good. All right, this is Hope for the Caregiver. We'll be right back with something that has nothing to do with caregiver, but it made me laugh, and it really just cranked my my engine here. This is Hope for the Caregiver with Peter Rosenberger. John Butler's joining us, and hopeforthecaregiver.com. We'll be right back.
Have you ever struggled to trust God when lousy things happen to you? I'm Gracie Rosenberger, and in 1983, I experienced a horrific car accident leading to 80 surgeries and both legs amputated. I questioned why God allowed something so brutal to happen to me, but over time, my questions changed, and I discovered courage to trust God. That understanding, along with an appreciation for quality prosthetic limbs, led me to establish Standing with Hope. For more than a dozen years, we've been working with the government of Ghana and West Africa, equipping and training local workers to build and maintain quality prosthetic limbs for their own people. On a regular basis, we purchase and ship equipment and supplies, and with the help of inmates in a Tennessee prison, we also recycle parts from donated limbs. All of this is to point others to Christ, the source of my hope and strength. Please visit standingwithhope.com to learn more and participate in lifting others up. That's standingwithhope.com. I'm Gracie, and I am Standing with Hope.
He will be strong to deliver me safe. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, joy of the Lord, joy of the Lord, joy of the Lord is my strength.
Welcome back to Hope for the Caregiver. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is the show for you as a family caregiver. How are you feeling? How are you doing? How are you holding up? As always, with me, John Butler. Hey, listen, real quick, John.
Right on.
This
I've been
truly
waiting for
has,
this.
this has
I have
nothing
no idea what
to
you're
do
gonna
with being a caregiver. But there is a wonderful movie out there that has become a cult hit. It didn't, when it first got going, everybody's kind of figuring out how to define this movie. And then all of a sudden,
Right.
something flipped, and it became a cult hit. And they've done a documentary about making the movie.
So
the movie
I have
is-
real quick aside, because I have the last song I was learning to play. I picked it up 2 days ago. I'm like, oh, that's the chord progression. Let me mess with that. And it's from Rocky Horror Picture Show. So you're not talking about
it's
that.
not
I'm
that
guessing,
one.
right?
It's not that one. It is Galaxy Quest.
Oh, that's
With-
one of
with
my
your favorite
favorites.
actor.
Yes. Well, it's not my. I don't know if
Well,
he's my
one of
favorite,
your
but he's
favorite
definitely in my
actors.
top 5, and that is, of course, Alan Rickman. Yes.
Alan Rickman. Well, evidently this movie has become a real. It's endeared itself quite well, and it's held up pretty well.
As
And,
it should.
well, Grayson and I sat down and watched the behind the scenes of this thing, and he said, "You got to see this." And they were going to cast a bunch of different people in the role that Tim Allen really lobbied for. He wanted this,
okay.
and basically what it is if the cast of Star Trek made a movie about their life as actors, and then aliens from another planet happened to see the original series and thought it was real, and they came to these actors to help them fight an intergalactic battle.
Right, they
That's
needed the Enterprise. Like, well,
Yeah.
we got to get like the legendary Captain Kirk, you know. Or
Yeah, and so the Captain Kirk character was played by Tim Allen, and then the Spock type character was played by Alan Rickman, and so forth. And it was just hysterical, but the way they made this movie, and they set out to make a really, really good Star Trek movie. And Gray and I watched this thing and just laughed. Not just the movie, we laughed at the movie, but we laughed at all the behind the scenes stuff and the drama that was going on. And I did not know this, but the film company said, I mean, the producer of the movie said, when you make a movie like this, you really hope and pray that the studio has a bigger project that is having problems, so that there's no adult supervision over
like
our
scrutiny.
movie.
Yeah.
And the studio was making a big movie at the time that was Gladiator, and it was running way over budget. Oliver
yeah.
Reed, one of the actors in it, died during the filming of this movie. You know, and it was.
I mean, look, Richard Harris was in it. I mean,
yes,
you
and
know?
it was a big movie, and it ended up winning all kinds of Oscars. Well, in the meantime, while they're doing that, these guys over here making this movie,
they're making
and they
Galaxy
just-
Quest in the boys' room. You know,
It really was. And Alan Rickman was so incensed by Tim Allen, because Tim Allen would be cracking jokes all the way up to the moment where they say rolling, and he's making the cast laugh, and Alan Rickman's over there going, "I'm not going to laugh at him. I will not laugh at this." You know,
What,
and it was-
what do you say? I in the movie, I think he says like, "I played King Lear" or something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
well, yeah. He said, and there's this one scene, but then they got really serious in parts of the movie, and it was really very meaningful. In fact, Steven Spielberg came to the set because his company was executive producing it, and was watching Tim Allen, who was, you know, he's a comedian, and you know, he's watching him deliver this emotional scene, and Steven Spielberg's like, man, this guy's he's doing a great job, and then. And then Tim Allen was so overwhelmed by the emotion of what he looked at the director. He said, I don't really like what I'm feeling right now. I got to go to my trailer for a minute. And Alan Rickman said, "Oh my, Tim has been overcome by acting. He has finally learned to act." You know, it was just, I can't do Alan Rickman like you do. But it was really quite entertaining. And if you enjoy those kinds of things, it just lightened my heart for a while. And I do love that kind of stuff. It's just to me, it just makes me laugh.
So you watched a documentary on the making of Galaxy
Yes,
Quest.
it's called Never Surrender.
Because
their tagline is "Never give up, never surrender." And
I was either going to go with that one or by Grimthaw's hammer.
But Tony Shalhoub is in it. Do you know who Tony Shalhoub is?
Yes, I'm well
He's
aware
Monk.
of Tony Shalhoub, and yeah. But like when they get transported the first time, right, and everybody else is freaking out or vomiting or whatever, and Tony Shalhoub's character gets slorped. I don't know if that's a word. But he's like, "Whoa, that was a thing." Yeah, we got beamed up. But it's like a little more wet than getting beamed up in this particular set of technologies. But he was the only one that was like, "Well, that was a thing."
Well, he
that
was.
delivery.
This was before Monk, but it was really it's very entertaining. If you want to watch something that's kind of entertaining, this has nothing to do with caregiving. I told you it had nothing to do with caregiving,
It
but you stayed
absolutely
to
has
all the
something
way.
to do with caregiving.
Well,
because,
yes.
Well, we all need a little bit of an escape sometime, and I don't mean an escape, but I mean some sort of pause in the chaos. And one of the best ways to do that, and we talk about it all the time, is to have a good laugh. You know, it's so important. Yeah, and that's
And I enjoyed it immensely. And you listeners stayed all the way to the end of the podcast. So I'm going there, you know.
You
this
made
is
it
at
to the
very
Easter egg, yeah.
and so we watched this, and it was a lot of fun. But Tony Shalhoub, I loved him. I watched every episode of Monk, and I love him and everything he did. But this was before it. But it's really worth it. It's just to see the inner workings that go on behind a movie, you know, making a movie like that, and they really did a great job of not. For the first time, Star Trek was kept alive because of the fans, and they referenced this in the documentary that they had the view of the Star Trek fans as in that episode of Saturday Night Live when Kirk came out there. You remember that when William Shatner did this? Did you ever see this? If you ever see it on Saturday Night Live, William Shatner was on Saturday Night Live. This is back in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think, or maybe, it had to be in the 80s. And they're all dressed up in their Star Trek uniforms, and here William Shatner comes out and he's like, "It was a TV show. Move out of your parents' basement. What's the matter with you people?"
No.
You know, and all the fans were just like really just brokenhearted, and so they that's kind of what they had in mind to do it, but then to actually give respect to the fans. It's just a fun movie, and it's got an amazing cast. But Alan Rickman. You know, they were going to make a series of it, and then he died before they could make the series. They had already planned it, and they were all going to come back, and then he passed away. Just a great fun time. So it had absolutely nothing to do with the things we were talking about, but it made me laugh, and I hope you enjoyed a good little laugh as well. Listen, we got to go. All right, New Year. Here we are. Do something today that stirs your heart. And remember, life is messy, so keep a mop close by. You don't have to have everything perfect for you to have a spectacular day and for you to have enrichment in your life. Do something that enriches your soul. Let's start with that. We'll worry about New Year's resolutions another time. I give mine up for Lynn anyway. So, John. Sorry.
Always a pleasure, sir.
It is indeed. HopeForTheCaregiver.com. If you want more, share the podcast with somebody you think would find it meaningful. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Hey, this is John Butler, producer of Hope for the Caregiver, and I have learned something that you probably all know, that Gracie, his wife, lost her legs many, many years ago and started a prosthetic limb outreach ministry called Standing with Hope. And recently, they ended up with a rather unique and unexpected partner. Peter had a conversation with Gracie, and take a listen.
Gracie, when you envisioned doing a prosthetic limb outreach, did you ever think that inmates would help you do that?
Not in a million years.
When you go to the facility run by Core Civic over in Nashville, and you see the faces of these inmates that are working on prosthetic limbs that you have helped collect from all over the country, that you put out the plea for, and they're disassembling. You see all these legs, like what you have, your own prosthetic
And
legs.
arms, too.
And arms.
Everything.
When you see all this, what does that do to you?
Makes me cry because I see the smiles on their faces, and I know what it is to be locked someplace where you can't get out without somebody else allowing you to get out. Of course, being in the hospital so much and so long. And so these men are so glad that they get to be doing, as one man said, something good finally with my hands.
Did you know before you became an amputee that parts of prosthetic limbs could be recycled?
No, I had no idea. I thought of peg leg. I thought of wooden legs. I never thought of titanium and carbon legs and flex feet and sea legs and all that. I never thought about that.
As you watch these inmates participate in something like this, knowing that they're helping other people now walk, they're providing the means for these supplies to get over there, what does that do to you just on a heart level?
I wish I could explain to the world what I see in there. And I wish that I could be able to go and say, this guy right here, he needs to go to Africa with us. I never not feel that way. Every time, you always make me have to leave. I don't want to leave them. I feel like I'm at home with them, and I feel like that we have a common bond that I would have never expected, that only God could put together.
Now that you've had an experience with it, what do you think of the faith-based programs that Core Civic offers?
I think they're just absolutely awesome. And I think every prison out there should have faith-based programs like this, because the return rate of the men that are involved in this particular faith-based program and the other ones like it, but I know about this one, is just an amazingly low rate compared to those who don't have them. And I think that says so much. That doesn't have anything to do with me. It just has something to do with God using somebody broken to help other broken people.
If people want to donate a used prosthetic limbs, whether from a loved one who passed away or, somebody who outgrew them, you've donated some of your own for them to do. How do they do that? Where do they find it?
Please go to standingwithhope.com/recycle. standingwithhope.com/recycle.
Thanks, Gracie.